What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hardwood Convos podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. I'm Brock Bierman alongside, as always, the boys Dawson, Livingston, and Hunter and Rose here to talk a little bit NBA hoops as we are recording here on a Wednesday night, the day after the highly anticipated reunion, I guess, of the Mavericks and Luka Doncic, as well as just other games going on in the NBA. Because, you know, Luka and the Lakers isn't the only thing going on, even though that's what the media would make you want to think. But as we get started here, we'll hit on the breaking news that we got before starting this recording, which we'll hit on soon. But outside of the breaking news that we'll hit on, Dawson and Hunter, how are we feeling? Both NBA basketball and just overall, how you guys doing? It's been a week.
Well,
Basketball. Oh, Hunter, you got
go.
that.
No.
All right. I'll go. All right, on me. Basketball wise, like NBA wise, more specifically,
You don't want to talk about your Hawks?
Nope, I don't. They're getting a new coach, so we'll talk about that when the time comes. But no, Cavs are doing really well. Still kind of recovering from that beat down from a few weeks ago in some football game that happened. I don't quite remember, but yeah, doing good otherwise.
Hunter?
Man, I don't want to talk about the Bucks anymore. I just can't do it. Like, I just don't understand how did Brook Lopez survive the trade deadline, man? How?
Crazy.
How? I don't get it.
I mean,
I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore.
You guys got Kyle Kuzma.
Honestly, Kuzma's been fine. I owe him an apology. I think I can't remember if I gave him one last week or not. He didn't play terrific. That was probably the game against the Rockets. Probably the worst game he's had since being in a Bucks uni, but at least he brings energy. Brook Lopez walks. What energy does that bring?
He's always walked.
So Bobby Portis can run.
Dude, I at this point, I'd actually rather have Bobby than Brook. Like, this is how bad it's getting now. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I feel for you. It seemed like you guys were setting up for actually a deep run over the next couple years after your guys' championship in 21.
I'll always cherish 2021.
Especially because you helped prevent Chris Paul from winning a ring.
Amen.
CP0. But obviously we need to hit on the breaking news here heading into Wednesday night. NBA Centel, the legendary account where misinformation gets spread and people, over and over again fall for it, is either deactivated or has been deleted for some reason. So let's have a quick moment of silence for NBA Centel and all the memories it's brought. Okay.
Makes a grown man cry.
Man, it's rough. One of my favorite accounts to follow of all time, just in general, no matter what social media platform. And it's such a big deal that you got NBA accounts, athletes, famous celebrities, and sports personalities tweeting out about Centel no longer being on Twitter. What are your guys' thoughts? Overall lasting impact it's had on your lives? Because, I mean, we grew up in the social media era of the NBA, and getting Centel is one of the funniest / more embarrassing things that could ever happen to you. But what are your guys' thoughts on the ending of the Centel era of the NBA?
It's not over yet. He could still come back. I'm still holding out hope. We've all been Centelled. We've all been there. We've all looked at that tweet that he'll put out there and be like, oh, some breaking news or some stories leaking, and then you look at the account a little bit closer and it says Centel, and it's just like, oh, that's a gotcha moment. Truly one of the more funny accounts that's out there on Twitter for the NBA. It's been around for a few years, I want to say. Yeah, it is crazy when like the social media accounts of like these professional teams are tweeting out about it. Like the Magic tweeted out like an hour ago, hashtag free Centel. The Kings also tweeted out hashtag RIP Centel. It's kind of crazy when a parody account reaches like that height, like for with professional basketball teams, their social media teams to tweet out something like this. But man, it's gonna there's gonna be a hole missing in Twitter right now, and or X, whatever you call it. But it's just not gonna be the same until either this account is permanently banned or if it comes back at all. But
End of an era. I don't even know what to say.
is.
It's terrible. Terrible for the game. No one can replace. No one can. Adam Silver made the call. Yet another reason to get rid of that guy.
Hunter, are you the biggest Adam Silver hater at this point?
I am, because I know I can do a better job. I know I can, because I have.
Oh my gosh,
GM.
That is true. No, Dawson, you understand. Hunter does have a background in running a league. He does know how to run a league very well. Yeah, Stephen A. has tweeted out something. The Hawks have tweeted out. Ice Cube's son has tweeted out something.
What an odd shout out there.
It's literally the first tweet I see when I click on Centel. O'Shea Jackson Jr. First tweet that shows up.
That's hilarious.
And it might be. I don't know. It might just be for me for some reason. I don't know.
No,
it's probably,
I see it too.
and I just think that's hilarious. It's before Stephen A. Smith. But it's a sad day for sure. Hopefully, maybe we get another meme account that can come up, but it's hard to replace the GOAT. Also, by the way, I think someone said that, or someone posted that they actually did post an accurate thing about Paul George, which we'll get into later. And it was funny how they were talking the truth, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Nah, we're done." Right after they told the truth. So,
it was Paul
assuming
George's fault
that
we don't have Centel.
It's assuming that we don't get it back. Rest in peace to Centel. Some great memories over the years. And hopefully that we get either a new account or something else, because during those low, slow weeks of the NBA, at least there's Centel that you can rely on to give you some funny content. And I think the NBA, when it goes through its lulls in the slow season, I mean, it's not to the MLB level just because the MLB has 160 whatever games. But those slow periods can get really rough being an NBA fan. But let's get back into that's NBA news for sure. Let's talk about some things going on the court and some players specifically. We haven't talked about this guy in a couple weeks, Joel Embiid and the 76ers. First of all, the 76ers are nowhere near I guess they're only 3 games out from the play-in game, but they're in an interesting situation right now, as it seems like Joel Embiid is probably not going to play the remainder of the season. I don't know if it's actually been confirmed or not. They've actually went outside of their medical team and is tried to get some opinions from other professionals in the world of medicine, and it sounds like they might have to do some surgery that don't quote me on this, and if you guys know for sure, feel free to chime in. They would have to break his hip bone or something like that and realign something. I don't know what exactly it was, but sounds like a terrible procedure, and it doesn't sound like one that you can bounce back from quickly, because your hip is kind of important, and if they're going to intentionally break it in order to fix whatever your issue is, that's not good, to say the least. And he's still on contract for, oh good lord, 3 more years, and his paycheck is going to just get higher and higher though the next couple years. I think he is responsible for the 76ers, 33% of the 76ers cap over the next couple years. What is next for the process is I'm already from the aspect that the 76ers, as long as Joel Embiid is on their roster, will not win a championship, just because of the fact that I think he's holding them back now. At one point, I thought he was going to help them elevate to a high level, but now I think because of his injuries, he's actually holding them back. What's next for him? And more specifically, what's next for the Sixers? Because they don't technically own their pick, depending on where they land in the standings and the lottery.
Nah, somehow Devil Magic Presti cooked this thing up perfectly. And lo and behold, we're actually having to consider, can the 76ers actually be bad enough to keep their pick? Which, by the way, they'd have to finish, I think, top six in the draft in order for them to have it. Probably nothing that anybody would have ever thought would matter at the start of the year. And yet here we are with two of their players accounting for over $200 million, well over $200 million a piece for the next few years. It's so over. It's so over. It's bad. There's just no recovery. There really isn't. You literally would have to find somebody. I'm sure there's people who would still trade for Embiid. I don't even think based off the reports that Brock just mentioned, though, you wouldn't be able to trade him in the first place. You'd have to be healthy, and then someone have to do a physical, and then we'd have a whole Mark Williams situation again. It's so over. And I'm loving it, but it's so over.
It really makes me think, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, how many opportunities that the Sixers missed over the last 5 years when it comes to postseason success and the quality of team they had around them. Basically from 2020 on, they've been a playoff contender pretty much every year. They have aspirations of going further. That 2019 season where they lost to the Raptors, you could also count. But 2020-21 season, they lose in that Hawks series where Ben Simmons just completely melts out. All right, so you can blame that on Ben Simmons, whatever. The next season, they end up losing the Heat in that goofy 2022 year in 6 games, where Philly was by far the better team, but just couldn't show up offensively. The following year, they sweep the Nets in the first round and then had a 3-2 advantage in that second round against Boston. End up losing game 6 and 7. Yeah. And then this past season, just get beat by the Knicks in 6 games. And granted, I know Embiid had that injury that was able to, that hindered him playing well. But, you just go through postseason failure after postseason failure, over and over. And, the amount of roster turnover this team has had over the last 5 or 6 years, it's crazy. And to the point where we're at now where we're talking about them being a bottom 6 or 7 team in the league. I think it's just crazy the fall off they've had over the last few years.
It's just hilarious how many all-stars or even former all-stars that roster, that franchise has been able to put with Joel Embiid at one point. James Harden's been on the team. Tobias Harris has been on the team. Ben Simmons is technically a former All-Star. Jimmy Butler. I knew it was over, honestly. Or at least that's when I started feeling like I don't think Joel Embiid will ever win a championship in Philly, was when they weren't able to retain Jimmy Butler in that offseason. I felt like that was their best team put together. And unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, they weren't able to retain him, and he ended up going to Miami. The rest is history on that era of Jimmy Butler's career. But, man, I do kind of feel bad because Joel Embiid is, when healthy, is really good and really fun to watch. I'm not going to lie. I don't like watching him against my team, obviously, but he's a character. He's a personality that the NBA needs, really, in terms of trying to get viewership, because obviously viewership apparently is an issue this year. And with him being out, there's not really an urge to watch Philadelphia basketball, especially because they're bad this year. And the fact that they may not even have their pick this year makes it even worse. This franchise is a bunch of what ifs, really. If you could label this franchise right now, it's just what if. What if you didn't draft Ben Simmons? What if you didn't draft Markelle Fultz? What if Joel Embiid was healthy all the time? What if you were able to retain Jimmy Butler? What if Michael Carter-Williams wasn't a one-hit wonder with his Rookie of the Year campaign and that was it? I'm not sure what's next for them. I think it's going to get really, really bad before it gets any better for them, because I don't know how many teams are going to want to trade for Joel Embiid, because you cannot guarantee that you're going to benefit from what you're paying this guy. Because, I mean, has he ever played the minimum of 65 games that would be eligible for an award in his entire career in a season?
Once. Yep.
And what year was that? Was that the year he won MVP?
No, it wasn't, actually. That was the year prior.
Okay.
He's played, the highest he's ever played is 68. He has a 66 game season, 2 51 game seasons, a 63 game, and a 64 game season.
And don't get me wrong, when he's healthy, he's dominant. But that doesn't matter if when you need him the most in the playoffs, he's not either healthy or even playing in the game because he is injured completely. And then you pair up with a guy who historically has been underwhelming since leaving Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City was probably Paul George's best. I guess him in Indiana, when he became Paul George and the All-Star, may have been his better era, but him in Oklahoma City, I think he a top 4 MVP candidate at one point.
He was, yeah,
top 3.
Uh-huh.
And now, ever since he went to LA, and that LA experiment with him and Kawhi has been one of the biggest failures in NBA history, in my opinion, because people were calling it before the trade was even probably finalized officially in paper and everything, that the Clippers were going to win a championship. I still have a video of Max Kellerman saying that if Kawhi goes to the Clippers, they are winning the championship the next year. I'm still waiting for the Clippers to win their first championship with Kawhi. But you paired him with a guy that historically has been underwhelming in the playoffs. PG-13 has not been good in the playoffs outside of his stint with Indiana.
Pandemic P.
Oh my gosh, that pandemic run was terrible. Which sucks, because then you got a guy in Tyrese Maxey who I actually think could be a really good asset to a team that's wanting to contend for an NBA championship. So do you guys know? I'm assuming he signed an extension, right?
Yeah, he's like guarantees. I think he has a higher guarantee than Paul George does on that team at this point. But he's under contract for a few years.
If I'm Tyrese, I'm trying to get out. I'm not going to lie.
He's under contract this year all the way up until he'll be a free agent after the 2028-2029 season.
Yeah, if I'm Tyrese, I'm trying to get out of there.
Which is also the same year, or the year prior, that Paul George will be a free agent.
And it's not, I think, based off of how much between Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, how their contracts build up, how it goes plus 5% every year. They don't have room to add anybody.
Nope.
That's their team. And so if Embiid's not going to be healthy and Paul George isn't going to be healthy, that's 80% of their payroll.
Mm-hmm.
Just right there, gone.
Yeah.
They're lucky they hit on that Jared McCain pick, because they could really be screwed for their future. I know McCain's out for the rest of the year, but when we saw him play back in November and October, he was the runaway Rookie of the Year favorite. Mm-hmm. I think all of us agree.
Easily. Yep.
So the fact that they were able to nail that pick, I think, was huge. But outside of those big three, that's not even a big three, the top 3 players, it's Kelly Oubre is a free agent after this year, who's been playing good minutes for him. Andre Drummond's a free agent. Eric Gordon, who's older, is a free agent. Kyle Lowry's older, he's a free agent. Gershon Yabusele, who played his butt off in the Olympics and was playing well in the NBA this season, he's going to be a free agent after this year. They just don't really have a whole lot of cost-controlled players outside of Jared McCain. So it's going to be a fun watch to see what they end up doing in the offseason, if they get their pick or what happens. But we definitely gonna have to keep our eye out for the Sixers.
Yeah, it's a mess. I just don't know what they're going to be able to do in order to rebuild and retool for a potential championship. And Paul George announced on his podcast that he's stepping away from his podcast to focus on winning a championship for Philadelphia. So, in other words, don't expect an episode ever again from Paul George's podcast. So two deaths today of NBA Centel and Paul George's podcast. We'll see what they do. Hopefully, they for the sake of Sixers fans, they can retain their draft pick. Honestly, for the sake of NBA fans, because Oklahoma City owns it, right? Last thing Oklahoma City needs is another decent pick. Because that's who owns it, right? I want to confirm.
Yeah, I was looking. It's like protected in a weird way. I was just pulling that up so that way I can say it right.
But it's they're gonna fall, man, and they've only won one of their last 9, so they're pretty much selling completely, which is the worst streak in the last 10 games for all NBA teams, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Brock, you'll love this. If this pick, if it's a top 6 protected pick, so if it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1, the Sixers keep it. If it's outside the top 6, it goes to Oklahoma City. Do you know what trade this pick was involved in?
Al Horford.
It was the Al Horford trade back in 2020 when the Sixers were trying to dump his contract. So they kind of just threw the pick in, and now if they end up winning the lottery and this is the Cooper Flag pick, that's awesome. But if they get the 7th pick in the draft, oh man, that's really going to hurt for the Sixers.
Oh my God. The 76ers are one of the dumbest organizations. They are reaching Nets level of like just yeah.
Don't get me started on the Nets, dude.
I was gonna say stuff on this podcast that we probably shouldn't, but they're entering Nets level of impressiveness of how many times they can mess up in the NBA. Sticking with the Eastern Conference. Well, actually, no. I feel like it would be a sin if we didn't talk about this right after talking about Joel Embiid. Big news, multiple headlines coming out of San Antonio in the past week. One of them, of course, was the day after we recorded our last podcast of Victor Wembanyama being out for the rest of the year due to blood clot in his shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where it was, which is a huge, like that's a big deal, and honestly a scary thing because that's not necessarily like an injury. That's a health issue, and that's not the only health issue that the San Antonio Spurs organization is dealing with. Obviously, Popovich hasn't been coaching for a while, had a stroke in the season. During the season, doesn't sound like he's going to be back this season. And honestly, from the sounds of it, they're making it sound like Popovich probably won't ever coach another game in the NBA. And I want to start with that a little more before we talk about Wembanyama's health issue or health scare that's going to keep him out for the rest of the year. Greg Popovich, in my opinion, is the greatest NBA coach of all time. Depending on who you talk to, you can make a debate on that. Has all the championships involving San Antonio, was able to build teams around David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, all those guys. And even when he knew that was over, he stuck around, tried to help build this team. And I feel like he's helped, even though he hasn't been on the sidelines this year, he helped build the roster that I feel like is going to be really good in the next couple of years, over the next couple of years. And it's really unfortunate that probably one of the nicest guys, at least from everything that I've seen, one of the nicest guys in NBA history, one of the nicest coaches, funniest coaches, honestly, probably unintentionally, just because of how old school he is of a guy, won't be able to go out on his terms as a head coach. I think he has the all-time wins record in the NBA. If not, he's borderline right there. But what are your guys' thoughts, or at least what is, in your opinion, Popovich's lasting legacy? Because had runs with Team USA, so even outside the NBA game, he's had lasting impacts on the sport of basketball as a whole.
Yeah, it kind of just sucks to see, honestly. Just like, especially for each of us, probably, getting more and more into basketball, especially during that era of, watching. I mean, I literally remember complaining about the Heat and the Spurs like for a solid couple of years. Obviously, then, had the foreshadowing in their last game with Golden State, just coming kind of out of nowhere, but also not. But yeah, like it definitely sucks to see, and it's like it would be awesome if he were able to make a return at some point, but health wise, it probably just doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, I think especially, being able to like cement his legacy is obviously one of the most winning coaches, one of the most winningest coaches of all time in the NBA. And then, I mean, there's a reason USA Basketball had him around for so long. Like the dude definitely is very, very good at his job. Gets players like, especially I remember actually when like after like LaMarcus Aldridge, like I think was probably like one of the last guys like vets who was around at least. And everyone was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like seeing Popovich go from like a team with a bunch of veterans to like, this young team with this DeJounte Murray kid. But it seemed like everyone had positive things to say, even if it wasn't like, oh, this guy, is the nicest coach ever. Not all the time, but he definitely is one that like very much cares like about his players and obviously wants them to succeed and has been able to do that for the most part. So definitely it was kind of tough to see.
Yeah, I mean, one of basketball's like Mount Rushmore, just not even like coaches or players, just like figures, I would say. I mean, he took over the Spurs in the late 90s, and then from then on out had a 20-year plus dynasty that they never really had a bad year. Like the bad year for them was maybe getting bounced in the second round of the playoffs, but they were still winning like 50 plus regular season games a year. I looked it up. Popovich is the winningest coach of all time when it comes to like wins. He's got 1,412 wins. The next closest is Don Nelson at 1,335. So he's almost 100 wins clear of second place for coaches. Yeah, you guys mentioned it. Like Popovich and the Spurs was kind of like, I don't know, like when you first start watching the NBA, like as our age, like it was like that Heat Spurs back and forth. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, like all those guys. And even when Duncan retired in 16, that next year they went to the conference finals against the Warriors. And if Zaza Pachulia doesn't roll on Kawhi's ankle, who knows what happens in that series and that potential finals. But I really hope that he's able to coach again. I don't want this to be the way that he goes out, but obviously if it's for health concerns, I understand him stepping away. But I think if anything, he's put the Spurs in a great place. If he had to step away, and the interim head coach Mitchell Johnson, who I just looked up, he's been doing fairly well. This team is fairly young. Obviously Wemby, which we'll touch on his injury in a second, but they were able to get a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Stephon Castle has blossomed into this awesome point guard off the bench for him. So I think, although it sucks that Popovich will have to step away and he's one of basketball's icons, I think the Spurs are going to be in a really, really good place because of Popovich and what he's done for that organization.
Yeah, I kind of hope that if he's not going to be able to coach ever again, that at least like they'll do some kind of like honoring of him, like with him there, whether it's like raising a banner that some teams do with coaches who have impacted their franchises. I guess that's more of a college basketball thing or a college sports thing than it is an NBA thing. But the fact that he's the all-time winningest coach, I feel like that deserves a banner of some sort, or at least honor him in some way, shape, or form. I feel like the NBA will probably honor him in some way, shape, or form as well. whether that's creating. I don't what is the head coach award named after? Because I know they like named all the awards recently. So I don't know if like it's probably like Pat Riley or like
It's the. Hold on, that can't be right. I don't know what it's called.
because they renamed all the awards like a couple years ago.
The Michael H. Goldberg NBCA Coach of the Year Award. I don't know who Michael H. Goldberg is. Maybe I'm a casual.
He's a sports executive.
Oh yeah, he is.
Okay.
But yeah,
So I don't know. Maybe they'll have something that will honor him, and the NBA loves doing that stuff, or at least I sure hope they do. They still do. They used to do it a lot more, but yeah, it's unfortunate for him, and even more unfortunate for the San Antonio Spurs, who have just kind of dealt with a lot of weird situations going on this year. Wembanyama is out for the rest of the year with a blood clot. I don't know if it's the exact same type. I don't know health stuff as much. But I don't. It's when I hear blood clot, I want you guys to guess the player that pops in my mind right away.
dinosaur.
Chris Bosh. Yep. And his career he was already past his heyday. Like he was on the downward slope of his career. But it's scary, dude. Like that's a legit health thing versus an injury that you could probably fix easily. So good that the San Antonio Spurs were able to catch it, but man, I guess I don't know how much insight or analysis you guys could give on this kind of situation, but if you're the Spurs, you're hoping that he can get better, as well as just in general as a person. You hope that Wembanyama can get better, but this is a scary thing, especially the week after the All-Star break.
Yeah, because usually it's deep vein thrombosis, which is something people Victor Wembanyama's age do not get at all. And so it is extremely similar, from what I understand, to be like Chris Bosh's injury, and which is why it's definitely something that like players can come back from. Like has happened before, but it's like, and I think thankfully it was caught early enough that it probably, is a good sign, at least for the future. But it's like, it's still obviously always scary. Like blood clots are always a scary thing. Because honestly, probably the biggest thing is like trying to figure out what caused it. I know there are some weirdos on Twitter, man. But there was someone that was going through games and was like trying to figure out like, oh, is this the moment it happened? Like there's one time I think somebody like landed on his shoulder. And it's like, don't do that. Like, don't put other players in a position like that. And even if it is, like, there's no point in highlighting it. There's no reason to. It's like any other injury. Like you don't want to bring more and more attention to it. Like you just want the player to be better ultimately. And so.
And like, imagine if that was like, even if it wasn't the actual video, but like if a player saw that, like, don't that can mentally
exactly
mess with a player.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't their fault or like it was unintentional, something like that.
It messed with Zaza Pachulia when he took Kawhi out the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
sorry.
Yeah, it's just I hope we're not, because you said it's not something that someone that is 21 usually gets. So
damn, he's my age. Damn, I feel old.
Yeah, it gets worse, Dawson.
Shut up.
It gets worse.
You shut your mouth.
Oh man.
What's next? I guess I don't. Is there really anything else that you guys want to say on this situation? It's a weird situation. There's not really much that we can really talk about because none of us have been through this. Fortunately, none of us have been through this. I don't know. Anytime I hear blood clot, I just go, ugh. Like it gives me like I get shivers just thinking about that for some reason. So
I remember I watched a video. I remember the other. So on one hand, you have like Chris Bosh, where like his, him being an older player. The other example, is Brandon Ingram. Actually had the same exact injury a while ago.
Yep.
I kind of forgot about that. And thankfully, obviously he's had other injury concerns for other reasons. But it's like he came back from that, and so it's definitely extremely possible. I'm sure, he's probably, like Wemby's a dog. So like, he's probably going to do everything he can to be back. But at the same time, he probably is also smart enough to know like, oh, I'll probably have to take this like seriously. Like, not that players don't take injuries seriously, but like kind of over the top with something internal like this. I'm sure he's got everyone having the best interest in mind for him ultimately. Dude's guaranteed to make a bunch of money either way. And so he will do whatever it takes to come back.
Yeah, it sucks for the NBA for sure because he was one of the few I feel like that was driving some ratings a little bit, which I can get. I don't know if I want to talk about my tinfoil hat theory on NBA ratings this year, but Dawson, any final thoughts on the Wembanyama situation?
No, Hunter kind of said it. Like, obviously, we think of the extreme of like this kind of injury, and it's like everyone points to Bosh, but there is the Brandon Ingram aspect of it that happened after I want to say his third year. It was the year right before he got traded to the Pels.
Yep.
So, and I think he was able to play the following season. The Spurs, like some of their like reporters have said that they don't believe it's a long-term injury and that he will be okay. They expect him to be back for next season. Mm-hmm. But it kind of sucks for them because they kind of had like real play-in like aspirations before the injury actually happened. Now, since then, they've dropped 3 in a row and they kind of know their place and where they're going to finish now. But we've seen this story before with the Spurs, and everyone put this out on Twitter, but I would feel silly to not bring it up because how the coincidence it could be. When David Robinson got hurt that following year, Spurs really bad. They drafted Tim Duncan. When Wembanyama gets hurt that same year, Cooper Flag maybe to the Spurs, and well, assuming it's Cooper Flag. There's other prospects in this draft, but knock on wood, the number 1 pick right now is going to be Cooper Flag. So we'll see. Draft lottery season's 3 months from now, maybe 2.5 months from now. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition.
What do you do if you're the Spurs?
Oh, you take Cooper. You would have to. Right?
Like, no, do you try to tank right now?
You're 5 games back of the 10 seed right now with the Kings. You're behind the I didn't say Pelicans. I didn't mean to. The Suns and the Blazers. The Suns are a train wreck. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But I would try to tank the rest of this year. Just get some more development from Stephon Castle. See if some of your younger guys can play. But I wouldn't punt on this year, but I would try to get Cooper Flag. That's all I'm going to say.
Imagine if they did. Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Cooper Flag. Honestly, Harrison Barnes is not a terrible asset.
CP0 coming off the bench.
Oh my God. That would be nasty. They're what? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're in 9th place right now in total league. So lottery wise, it'd be the 9th pick if it was chalk. But the NBA has sometimes manipulated draft lotteries, unconfirmed manipulated draft lotteries for certain players to go to certain franchises for certain reasons, which is why I'm not going to lie. The last couple days, I've started thinking that maybe this Luka Doncic situation in LA wasn't necessarily by choice by the Mavericks. I don't know about you guys, but
we've seen it before.
I firmly believe that if the NBA ratings were really good, I don't know why. I really don't have any reason to believe this, that the trade would have been vetoed, similar to Chris Paul. I really have tinfoil hat belief that Luka Doncic was traded to LA in order to fight this issue that they have with ratings. Because what has been the one sport anyone has talked about since this trade has happened? And it's the NBA. Because I can tell you right now, after the Super Bowl ended, if Luka didn't get traded, I think people would only be talking about the NFL still.
So I'm glad Luka got traded then, because we don't need to be talking about the NFL. We don't need to be talking about that.
So am I crazy to like have this little hunch, or have you guys been thinking about this too?
The Mavs-Lakers game was watched by 2.5 million viewers on TNT, which was the network's largest audience this season since the NBA's opening night.
I'm starting to think that I'm not the only one that's believing this.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird, guys.
No, it's just Nico
Kinda
Harrison doesn't like fat
funny.
players. He just doesn't like fat players.
Ha ha ha. Funny. Laker get good player again.
They always seem to do it, dude. They always somehow, like the amount of stars they've gotten, not even like draft, but like trade, free agency, it is getting like questionably, like, I don't know, like Will, Kareem, they traded for that James Worthy pick. They signed Shaq.
Everybody's
They got
talking
Pau
about
Gasol.
the NFL script and how the Chiefs always find a way to win up until this past Super Bowl. But no one talks about the Lakers.
It's one thing for a player in the offseason to be like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it's the LA Lakers, one of the most historic franchises besides the Boston Celtics, and there's a lot of reasons why people wouldn't want to go to Boston to play basketball.
I will go out on a limb before you finish your point to say that even though the Boston Celtics historically are a big franchise, it's LA, and then there's I would even put the Celtics in a tier list with a bunch of teams in that tier 2. It's LA and then everybody else.
It's because
you heard this first. The Lakers are better than the Celtics. Brock said it here first. Clip it.
Market
this
wise.
Now.
He did say
market wise.
Did say it.
Market wise.
This is going to be played back in May.
Yep, when the Celtics are cutting down banner 18, the Nets for banner 18 against the Lakers in Game 6.
Oh boy. But anyway, as I was saying, it's one thing for a player to like go there, they'd be like number one like destination for any kind of player who wants to be on the big screen, wants to make a name, even though there's a lot of difficulty with it. That's the place to go. You're going to get televised and everything. So surely we could make a theory then that if you're an owner for another team, you would not want the LA Lakers to have everything, because that means you don't get anything, and that means you don't get any national rights. So why in the world would you trade your best player to Los Angeles?
For Mr. Street Clothes.
I don't get it.
He's out here breaking his mic.
Yes, the audio peak's crazy.
I've been over this with Chase too many times. I'm like, Chase, I'm happy I can be happy for you as a friend. I am preying on your downfall from here on out. Daily.
You've never been happy for me and the Celtics having success.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. But literally, like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. Like, I've been like a pseudo Laker fan because it just got annoying arguing with Chase, to be honest. And like, it was way more fun to just be like, all right, go Bucks and also go Lakers. I can't do it anymore. I just can't. Like, there's just no way.
So is my like random, and maybe I'm not the only one that's talking about it on social media, but like, is my random theory that maybe this trade wasn't necessarily just the Mavericks being dumb?
It's kind of weird.
There's some other theories that have been thrown around out there that I think could also be in play. Like, I don't know if you've heard the Maverick ownership one and how they plan to move Dallas, move the Mavericks.
Seattle?
No, to Vegas.
Oh yeah, Vegas. Yeah. Sorry, everybody's moving to Vegas. Minnesota's moving to Vegas.
Yeah. Sorry. Different.
Go ahead.
No, I have a completely different thought.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, I feel like they'll expand to Vegas before they'll move to Vegas. Like any team, I don't think any NBA team will move right now.
Right.
That's just my thoughts. And plus, I feel like Dallas would be like the biggest market in Texas. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But Hunter, what were you gonna say?
So when your excuse to trade a player is they're fat and go to a hookah bar sometimes,
Dude.
I can tell you there's a fat Santa Claus in the state of Colorado right now, and he ain't getting moved anytime soon. He's staying in Denver. He's not getting traded.
See,
so
I
why
thought you
is
were
that an
legit
excuse?
talking about like a fat dude in a
too.
red suit. Just,
No, he was wearing a red suit at one point. But
God.
I'm pretty sure. But like that's that's not a reason. That's not a reason.
I love.
Can I say
the video of him doing push-ups?
Can I say
Shaq
one thing?
Shaq was in the hookah bar years. He was a regular on a first name basis when he was in Los Angeles, and they did not get rid of him until then they had to. But still, that's besides.
Until they had to.
That's like
Yeah.
way different. That was after 4 or 5 years of him letting himself go
Mhm.
in multiple championships.
Dawson, what were you gonna say?
If the Mavericks were that worried about him being fat and out of shape, he was still last season averaging 34, 9, and 8. If he is on that Ozempic that everyone in LA is on out there,
Oh my God,
he's averaging 40. He's going to
There's
average
no-
40 for an entire season.
there's no way we're talking about Ozempic now on this podcast.
I don't know, man. LeBron's going to do some voodoo magic to get him skinny, and he's going to average 40 points a game.
Luke is
You
gonna
mark
have a
my
six-pack
words.
by the end of the summer.
Holy crap.
I'm so happy I brought up my conspiracy theory now to you guys. I do this is because I legit don't understand it, and this is because I'm a Boston Celtics fan. Am I legit just delusional being a Celtics fan, or is like Jason Tatum like undeservingly one of the most hated players in the NBA? Like, or like,
Dude, I was agreeing with you for a while. Now you've lost me now.
I literally need like an outside perspective to understand why, because I feel like he just shuts up. Like he tries to do the memes or tries to recreate stuff, which turns into terrible memes. I get that part of why people think he's weird and stuff, but like he does his job. He doesn't like do anything controversial, I feel like. And this is again, like this is legit me just needing to know like what's people's issues with him. Jaylen Brown, I can understand. Boy can't make a left-handed layup.
Can't.
In an all-star game.
Hunter, you want to take this one or me?
So this was posted. This was from I don't know if this is an interview with them or not, but this is from the Washington Post. Okay, that somebody asked Jason Tatum if he felt appreciated in the NBA. This is what he said. Honestly, no. First of all, full stop. If you answer the question, do you feel appreciated? Like, if you feel appreciated, something you say, honestly, no. Your opinion is immediately out the window. I don't care anymore. Get out. But he keeps going. If you took the name and the face away from all my accomplishments, and you're just like, this is what this player A accomplished at 26, people would talk about me a lot differently. Sir. Does he not realize Giannis Antetokounmpo had to win the finals and drop 50 for him to continue to be called run and dunk man to this day? All right.
See, but
this is a man who won the finals, won a gold medal now, and is dating a very famous R&B singer and has a child coming. And this is how you're talking as a grown man? You can
see and maybe that's why I don't understand it, because like Giannis, I've always thought was an MVP candidate. I mean, you guys know I've picked him to win the MVP like the last like how many years now? So I guess that's why I don't understand it, is maybe because I don't know if I appreciate players more than other people do. I don't know.
I feel like I just complain sometimes, and it annoys me. That's not like as bad as other players. Like I'll give him that. Like
When he plays,
he's not like
he complains, and I can understand that. I can understand that idea, but like I do agree the idea that like if you do put his resume up without his name, I do think a lot of people would be like, "Oh yeah, you would." By no means am I saying he's a top 5 player in the league, but I do think if you put his accolades of, because I do think making the conference finals how many times in his career is actually pretty impressive. Multiple trips to the finals, does have a finals win. Now he is missing one thing from that I feel like would take him over the top, that I feel like would make him undeniably underappreciated, and that is being the finals MVP. Statistically, I think he led the Celtics in pretty much everything, but Jaylen Brown had a bigger impact. So, no, I just wanted to get your guys' opinion. Dawson, do you have any thoughts on anything outside of what Hunter said?
I think it's a combination of a couple things with Tatum and why we still like, I don't want to swear, crap on him. Sorry, I don't want to swear on the pod. Yeah. The Celtics being as good as they have been over the last few years, some NBA fans are super annoyed by that. Like, I am too sometimes. Like, it just gets super frustrating. Another thing is he's also like super cringy. Like, in any interview he's ever been in, like, he's just a super cringy player. Like, and I think it's just like those two that like people kind of block out like all the like good stats and good plays had this season. Because like if you take the name away from it, you could argue he's having a top 5 year across all the players. But the fact that he's more cringy than people,
the fact that he's Jason Tatum, his personality wise,
right? Yeah, it's just that, and yeah, you said it earlier, but him not having that Finals MVP, I think gives like more reason to troll Jason Tatum, if that makes sense, because we all think of him as the top dog on the Boston Celtics. I don't even think that's a debate. But when your second best player ends up winning that fight, it's like if those Heat days with Bron and Wade is if Wade all of a sudden like just won the Finals MVP in 2012 against the Thunder. Like,
I'm not gonna see, and this is why you're probably right. Because if that would have happened, LeBron being the GOAT,
he would have been
for me. Would not even be a conversation at this point. So right. I guess I get that. I get that idea now.
Like, and I only brought up those two because I feel like at that time, Bron and Wade's talent levels were super close. Bron obviously was the best player in the league, but Wade was still really good on those Heat teams. And whereas Tatum and Brown, they're pretty close, but Tatum's obviously the better player.
I think he's like 10 spots ahead, if
right,
not more.
But for Brown to win that Finals MVP, it just adds fuel to the fire for NBA fans. So,
yeah, I just wanted to get the perspective, and yeah, I do think he's a little cringy. And maybe this is like what I've come to realization, and maybe you guys don't agree with me. Jason Tatum is if they let an NBA superfan be good at, if God let an NBA superfan be good at basketball, I feel like this is what would be the result, because he tries to recreate everything that everybody has ever done. He wears the Kobe sleeve all the time. Like that's what, like, it feels like if you let someone who was literally obsessed with one player be good at basketball, this is what it would look like.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the thing that like put him over the edge was that classic text messages that we all know, the classic "I got you."
I don't know why he posted that. That was such a
out of here.
If he didn't think that wasn't gonna come back and bite him in the butt, like what?
He's like, this would be iconic. No, it's not.
And this was before he won the ship. Like, bro,
just bad.
If he knows anything about Kobe, Jav ain't finished.
What a goober.
But yeah, Hunter, do you got any wise words? Should I cue up the music or?
I'm good. I don't got much. Brooke Lopez, just needs to be off my basketball team. That's my word of wisdom.
Yeah.
Please.
Shout out the Cavs.
Yeah, shout out the Cavs for trading George Niang so he could like put up like 20 something last weekend.
The Cavs have not lost since making that trade.
Ooh.
Wow.
They also, okay, this is kind of crazy. They've already reached their win total from last year, which I think is like actually insane when you put it like, because it took them 58 games this year to win 48 games. Last year it took them the entire season. It took them 82 games.
Yeah.
You saying that the Cavs haven't lost since that trade? Man, you better hope Friday goes your way.
I know, dude. I just saw that the next game is Boston, but hey, we've been beating good teams by 40 since that trade. So we beat the Knicks by almost 40 that first game.
Ooh, you beat the Knicks.
Shout out Ty Jerome. That's the real. You want to talk about real MVP of Cleveland? It's Ty Jerome.
Okay, wait. When was this trade?
Before, was it the Raptors deal or Raptors game? Nets game? Okay. So I think he's played 6 games with Cleveland.
Okay.
Hunter and yeah.
Okay. So Minnesota. Okay, I'll give you Minnesota. Outside of that, you have beaten Toronto,
the Grizzlies,
Brooklyn, New York, Memphis, and Orlando. I'll give you two. I'll give you 1.5 because the Knicks literally cannot beat anybody that has a better record than them.
But the Grizzlies are the 3 seed in the West.
That's the one.
I don't know.
That's the one. The half is the Knicks. The half is the Knicks.
No Magic hype? Are we just off the Magic hype train?
Are we off the Magic hype train?
Dude,
bro.
That actually might be one of my words of wisdom. I'm off the Paulo train officially. I don't think I can do it. Like Franz, I've been on the Franz vlog train. Personally,
that game last night was rough.
I am proud to say that. But the Paulo, like, oh man, like there's some rough moments. And like statistically, there's someone that made a breakdown. It's not looking good. That man is inefficient as can be.
Yeah, I've seen that he is he's not doing too hot, to say the least, in the last couple of weeks or months. We'll see. See what the Magic are. I don't know if we'll ever be able to play the Magic song again on here, but any final thoughts before we sign off?
Pistons just beat the Celtics. Don't let the Boston media control you. That's it.
Don't let the Boston media fool you.
Don't do it.
What? Okay.
By 20 too. By 20.
I don't even consume Boston media.
You ask why Jason Tatum's
you are the Boston media,
and they just lose by 20 to the Pistons.
I'm the Boston media. Well, yes. I'm like the only Boston fan I think that's like excited for this year.
And the anomaly just lost the Pistons and gave them 8 straight, buddy.
Oh no,
Mr. Anomaly.
They're gonna pass the Bucks.
That's not impressive at this point.
I'm just hoping I'm just hoping Celtics don't have to play the Bucks in the play after the play-in game. I will say Atlanta Hawks against the Celtics in the first round would be kind of fun just because George Niang always plays, I feel like, tougher against Boston because he's from Massachusetts. But also gotta watch out for Miami's though. For some reason Miami, like Andrew Wiggins is gonna be like Andrew Wiggins in the finals.
Shout out the Bulls for still like finding a way to be in the play-in right now.
Well, yeah, and you look at the teams below them: Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Toronto, Charlotte, and Washington.
But Chicago's like clearly trying to be bad, and it's just like they still find themselves in that 10-9
Well, they're a little too late to start being bad. They started late. Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Toronto, Charlotte, and Washington were like, you're just now trying to be bad. We've been doing this for years.
Right.
Years. All right. We'll be back next week here on the Hardwood Convos podcast. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, whatever you can do to help support us. We appreciate it. Make sure to listen to our other episodes. We'll have a Sports Nerds episode out, I think, on Friday, as well as a 515 Sports podcast episode out next week covering college basketball. So for Hunter Rose and Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman, signing off.